mantra of the church that we have. We like to provide a church experience that is rooted, that is restful and relational. I've adapted it a bit more to be specific to the work that I do, but in essence, it's the same principles of being rooted and restful and relational.
Welcome to the Warrior Biz Network podcast, where the men of F3 Nation come to share, learn, and inspire, unlocking the secrets of business and life along the way. Join us as we dive into the stories of PAX entrepreneurs leading the charge in the world of business. From the heart-pounding challenges to the exhilarating triumphs, discover how these warriors in business are making an impact through the principles of fitness, fellowship, and faith. It's time to unleash your potential and join the ranks of F3's finest.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Warrior Biz Network podcast. I'm here with Rocko from F3 Northlake. What's up, Rocko? How are you?
Hey, good morning, Brad. Jasmine, sorry, probably just blew your cover, right? Doing great. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. You've got a cool background set up there. That looks super nice. I feel like you've done this before. You've been on some videos before.
No, I got kicked out of my house because I don't have any doors on my office. So I came to our co-working space and claimed a spot. So just kind of swanky. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks nice. So I got a chance to talk to you a little bit, Rocko, and I didn't realize you were Northlake until our conversation, but we're pretty close, so we're not too far away from each other.
Yeah, that's right. We should visit.
Yes, we definitely should. We were just talking before the show recorded and talked about some of the crazy epic run adventures and stuff that we've been on with some of the Northlake guys. And you guys have a team of some wild people. You've got a Northlake guy doing a 100-miler this weekend.
Crazy. It's just hard I can't get my brain around that. I've done a few marathons and barely got across the finish line on those. But yeah, Jolt's crazy. And cheering them on. We got several of three or four of our guys that are pacing them after the first 50. So that's fun to kind of watch from the shadows on that one.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. Something for him to be proud of. That's a big accomplishment. Yeah.
We like Jolt. He's a good man.
Yeah. So Rocko, tell us, before we get into your business and what you do, tell us a little bit about how you got the name Rocko, how long you've been a part of F3, what that journey's looked like for you.
Yeah. So before I moved here, I was in Charlotte and I only did F3 on Fridays with a group of guys in our neighborhood that did a fun run. I was an arrogant runner, didn't want to do the F3 thing. So they gave me a name there just because I was running with them. It was never official, and I'm not even going to tell you what it was. So I don't think I was ever recorded as that. So got here, and our neighborhood was starting to, I think they were starfishing into this one, and they'd started a couple of workouts, and my neighbor invited me. That was a year ago. And Rocko came around. It's not a very glamorous story. It's actually rather endearing. You know, sometimes you get a F3 name and you like it, and sometimes you don't. Well, I like this one. And I just simply told them that my grandkids call me Rocko, and it was actually from when we were doing a wine tasting event at a local winery that was not called Rocko, but it was like Arch Wine, but the lettering on it looked like Rocko. And so I said, "What is this, a Rocko wine?" And they thought I was drunk. So my family started calling me Rocko. And then it just stuck. So here I am. People outside of F3 have no idea that that's my name, so or my family, but everybody else.
Yeah. So. Well, it's cool. It's got some family legacy and heritage there too. So it has kind of a multiple meaning with family and with the guys in the gloom. Unlike me, if I go somewhere and tell them, you know, my name is Jasmine, I get a little bit of a side eye. I have to explain it.
Yeah. Oh no, I just let it go. I think it's great.
Just let it go. Let them figure it out. So, Rocko, you were a worship pastor for 30 years. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when I went to college, I thought I wanted to do youth ministry until I realized I had to work with them. And I decided I need to do something other than work with youth. That wouldn't have been a good thing. And I started this trajectory of doing music in the church. Back in the day, it was called church music. And so the beginnings of this 30 years ago was choirs and orchestras, hymns, and all of those things. And over the years, it transitioned to kind of what we know today in the kind of the contemporary church as the worship band thing. And so I did that for 30 years. And interestingly, I don't play the guitar. That's probably what aged me out of the thing, is I don't play guitar and I don't wear skinny jeans. And so eventually I think I just kind of came to a dead end in that and started to pursue some things, other gifts that I had in leadership and organizational things. Kind of have a weird brain. I'm not your typical musician. And I say that with great respect, that kind of has this artistic side of the brain that's all they use. Somehow I actually have an organizational not thoughtful, both have thoughtful. Can we delete that? It's a organizational leadership side of things that I really enjoy doing. So I started pursuing that. And but my degrees are all in worship and theology and music, and that's kind of my pedigree in that regard.
So it sounds like you've taken kind of the convergence of all those, your skills and your passions, to do what you're doing now.
Yeah, that's a great word. It's kind of a mashup of things that I love to do, things that God's gifted me to do, and I don't. Sometimes I wonder. I feel like I'm a bit of a unicorn out there trying to figure out where I'm going to corral because nobody wants to have me. But it's just kind of a weird combination of things, and God designed it, so I'm hoping that He uses all those things in this space in my life. So very thankful, though.
Incredible. So just to get super clear, and then we'll go into details. Tell everyone what the name of your business is, what exactly you do.
Absolutely. So my business is called R3 Church, or r3church.coach. My desire is to guide churches into a rooted, restful, relational presence in the world, and I do that through helping churches with their organizational health, with their leader enrichment, and with worship renewal. So it's kind of those three things that I have deep experience in. The Lord's allowed some training to come along the way, and so I'd love to speak into the life of churches and help them in each of those areas. And we can explore those if that's helpful at this point. But that's what I do, just trying to press into the life of the church so that they can thrive in a difficult time of church life, for sure.
And you work with local or national churches, or how big is your reach?
Yeah, thankful to COVID, Zoom is now an acceptable form of leading and serving. So it has opened up to be a national thing. I love being present with people. I think that's the strongest thing. And so I'll always push to be present with them. If they're willing to get me there, we can do it that way. But I'm open to helping folks. Some of my coaching clients that I have are just Zoom clients. We do it that way. With leaders. Teams, it's just a little more difficult with teams, but we do it. We had the 4-hour Zoom trainings that we've done with people that I think are successful. If I'm being honest, I don't think they are as successful as being present, but I think that's just the reality of that 2D environment where I can't really read a room. But yeah, so it's both. Yeah.
So rooted, restful, relational. Was that always when you came up with that? Did that happen a little bit later on as you started working with organizational health in churches, or has that always been a mission of yours?
Well, I don't like to use the word stole, but I borrowed heavily from my own church, and that is a mantra of the church that we have. We like to provide a church experience that is rooted, that is restful and relational. I've adapted it a bit more to be specific to the work that I do, but in essence, it's the same principles of being rooted and restful and relational. And I did a little field testing on it because it's a little unusual to think about churches in that way. And the feedback that I got from churches was it felt accessible. It didn't feel like this hard sell that we're going to come in and make sure you've got this robust organizational machine happening, but it speaks to my own heart. That is how I try to live in a rooted, restful, relational way. And I think people are looking for something like that. It feels it's tangible in many ways, I suppose.
So let's think of the churches you've worked with. Out of those 3 R's, which one do you find is the most common that churches struggle with?
Relational. Well, I'll say restful. It's kind of this what they need and what they want. What they need is a sense of restfulness, just because of the pace of culture and learning to establish a rhythm in life that's and in their churches that's sustainable, not cultural, not fad driven. It's the kind of this restful thing. But the relational side of things is difficult for people in churches. I think I'll go to the relational side, because that's usually what triggers people when relationships within staff isn't working. That usually precipitates problems. It's things just start happening because relationships are out of whack. So that's usually the need that people respond to first, and then we can get into the other things as we go along. But interestingly, in each of the areas of organizational health, leader health, and worship, there's a rooted, restful, relational component in each of those. So it really infiltrates kind of all that we do and helps summarize a lot of the leadership things that we do with people.
That's incredible. So it sounds like it spiderwebs out a little bit once you get into each of
Does.
those categories.
It does, yeah, absolutely.
Can you share a success story, maybe a transformation that a church has experienced after working with you?
Yeah, I'll do a smaller church. I think it really is indicative of probably more the clientele that I might be looking. I don't know if I shouldn't say that, because I've got both, but so I had a smaller church that contacted me. I actually met with them, and theirs was an organizational issue. They were more captivated by the working genius stuff with Pat Lencioni, which I'm certified to do that. And so I came to help them organizationally with trying to pull their team together, both in the present team and with somebody they're going to hire. And that was an interesting dynamic. So we went there, we did a Saturday workshop with them. And, their transformation just that day was palpable. You saw light bulbs come on, going like we've been like swimming upstream in this thing, and the whole time we don't have to work so hard in doing this. We have to work hard, but we can work more smartly, if that's the right word. And one of the ladies said, this is a real practical thing and a problem that all churches probably have. She says, we've been asking people to come and help do stuff like be in our nurseries and all these things, that we've been asking people that actually they're not wired to do that. We need to find the people that are gifted and wired to do the things we ask them to do. And then it's not an obligation. It's a gift. Hey, will you come and help do this? And find that. And that was really telling, and really changed the trajectory of not just how they're going to hire the next person, but how they're going to do ministry and push that out. And I think the success of it was measured by that comment, but also in the subsequent calls that I've had with them, where they would call and say, hey, we've got this particular issue. How does it apply here and there? So I think success of anything you give to people is how they begin using it. And they're definitely putting it to great use. So that one, I like that one, and I think that's a real indication of a healthy forward motion for them, for sure.
What a neat way, I'm sure, for you to see them even using the right language as they're talking about the gifts, and they have a whole new set of vocabulary to define what used to be undefinable.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because I think there's some familiarity. You've heard of the working genius thing, and it's like this: God designed people to get work done in a way that they love. He's not going to ask us to go do something that we don't love. Why would he do that? That would be cruel. No, he wired us in a certain way, designed us. I have done some high school college coaching things with this, and my little program there is called Genius by Design, and it's just the way God designed us. And so when we live into those things, and what a better place! There's such a parallel in the church. When we live into those things, we can help churches to thrive rather than trying to figure out what they're going to do and try to coerce people to do things they don't like to do. And so it's yeah. Anyway, that's the success story of that one.
Do you have people take the Working Genius before you start doing work with them, or do you usually introduce that later on in the program?
Oh no, it's well, it depends what they're asking me to do. Um, for leaders and teams of anything, I begin now with Working Genius, primarily because it's even if they're not asking for something about Working Genius, they provide talking points about the work that they're doing. And so because Working Genius really gets to heart and feeling very quickly with people, it's easy to begin talking about the issues that they're having. For teams, I would say almost exclusively we do Working Genius first, because it identifies problems that they're having, because it's ready. There are other tools that we pull into play, and we could do a whole array of things. We call it the trifecta, where we do the humble, hungry, smart leader. We do the Working Genius and the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Those things kind of all go together. But I start with Working Genius. It's a great place to begin.
Patrick Lencioni is one of my absolute favorite authors, and all of his books are phenomenal. One of my probably the most unique one that was different from his storytelling ones was The Advantage, that was written in a little bit different perspective, where he talks about the difference between the healthy and the smart organization. I thought that one was a pretty great read.
Absolutely, yeah. That may be. I think he's got 2 books that were not in his parable form, and that's one of them. But yeah, that one brings together a lot of the principles of the other ones. So it's kind of like his textbook for the whole thing.
I'm curious if you've ever seen the different Working Geniuses before you've stepped into the conference room and you've identified, hey, there's no one that's a galvanizer, or there's no one that's an X. Like there's a big empty spot, even before you get to talk to the people or get to know them. If you've identified a gap before you've gotten too deep into the program.
Well, I usually identify a gap, because when we do the Working Genius, you get a team map, and I know. So I don't often have the privilege of getting to meet all these people before I arrive. But I will say, when I do a pre workshop interview with the leaders of the thing, and they tell me what's going on, I begin to suspect what problems are, where there's gaps, why things aren't moving forward, why things aren't getting done, why they keep doing the same things over and over again. Nobody brings new ideas. You begin to pigeonhole. Okay, you got to be careful though. You don't want to assess yourself into a corner and and then realize it's not true. But yeah, you just begin to read, because you learn that in the whole Working Genius model, that there are 6 steps to every project. That anything that you do, there's 6 steps to it, from conception to completion. It's there's 6 steps, and so it makes it easy. That's what I like about the Working Genius. There's like 6 big handles you can grab on. You can figure out how to carry it to the finish line.
So looking at your website, I see that you work a lot with teams and leaders, but you also have specific worship renewal that seems to go back to your roots. So do you have a personal passion of, and you don't have to say which one's your favorite, but if you're working with team leadership and health leadership versus getting in there, and I see you've got like worship leader renewal workshops for team, all those things. Do you enjoy that worship side, since that's a little bit of your roots?
Who's listening to this? I don't want to give out any secrets. So
everybody.
so there is a sense, and this gets to be philosophical, so I don't want to go down this road. There's a sense that the apex of this whole thing is worship renewal. We're going to look at worship much more broadly than the Sunday morning come and listen to 3 songs, hear a preacher, go home concept, but a more holistic view of worship, that people are called into a life of being with Jesus, being like him, and doing what he did, kind of worship type of life. And so there's a sense that all of life is worship. We're all worshiping something. That we can't get away from that. My objective in worship renewal is to help redirect the heart back to where it belongs with God. So I have this passion for worship renewal. Now, here's the secret part. I would love to lead with that, but it's not an itch that people have. Because when you talk about worship, everybody goes to, well, the guy's guitar is a little out of tune, or I hate the songs that we sing, or I don't like the preacher. It's just, that might be part of it, but it's much bigger than that. So my leading edge in the business is the organizational health thing, because it is most present. And it seems like when people are asking for help, we can start with that conversation, but we'll eventually, especially as we speak with churches, we get to the worship thing. And my doctoral degree it's a worship theology degree. And so it takes on a new dimension when we start talking about it historically and theologically and philosophically and spiritual formation. And so there's a lot there. I suppose I could just do a coaching business just on that, but nobody knows they need it. So if
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah.
it does. I work with a lot of coaches and wonderful people like you, and admire what you do. And it is such a important and critical thing in all organizations. But I hear that word of like the unfelt need and the felt need, which is, what's the obvious thing, the pain point, like what's the splinter that's hurting.
Yeah.
And then once we pull that out, we realize like, oh man, it actually wasn't just that splinter. There's more to it, but we would never have known unless we pulled that first splinter out to reveal what's beneath.
Right. Yeah. That's really kind of the heart of the coaching thing too, is I got to somehow get in your shoes and figure out how I can help you, rather than me kind of forcing some sort of agenda on you, and hopefully you'll catch on eventually. So it's kind of step one.
So Rocko, I know there's lots of pastors that are in F3, maybe some pastor packs that are listening to this. What advice would you give? We'll just say church leaders. What advice would you give to church leaders who are feeling stuck or feeling overwhelmed in their ministry?
Yeah, can I tell a story?
Please.
Stories are good. So at the end of that it was about 35 years of doing worship ministry, I was let go from a church. Some of it was my own doing, just the stuckness that I was in. But it was a very, very painful time leaving this church. Lots of relationships just kind of swept under the rug, and it was really, really hurtful. And I got to this point where I was actually using the word stuck. I was all alone. I didn't have anybody around me. My wife and I were trying to get out of this ditch alone, and it was so hard. Painful to the point where, I'll say this without exaggeration, I wept for months. I was so alone. It was so hurtful. Finally, I mustered up the courage to go see a counselor. And I walked into the room and sat in that big leather couch that he had, and I just slumped down. I couldn't even look at him. I was that low. And he said, "So, Dean, what brings you here?" And I just looked up at him and I said, "I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I don't know what to do." And he began his counseling stuff with me, and over time, with his help, I got to a place where I could no longer say I was stuck. I still needed help, but I just became so aware that I could never have gotten out of that position, out of that ditch alone, without actually mustering up the courage to ask somebody to help me. Because he saw things and questions, offered questions that I just didn't even know how to ask. Another quick story that parallels this: I had a friend that was a missionary for like 45 years, and he moved back to the States, and we lived in Hilton Head, North Carolina at the time. And his name is Angus, and we went out oyster farming or harvesting, whatever you call it, along the edges of the May River where the oyster beds were. And the oyster beds are full of this stuff called fluff mud, like quicksand almost. And you'd step in it, you just kind of sink down in it. Well, Angus was in my little boat. We stepped out, well, he stepped out first, and he just sunk down into this fluff mud. And we're going, hey, Angus, you want us to help you out? He goes, no, I got it. Want us to help? No, I got it. So he lifts his feet out of his boots, which you need the boots because you step on oyster shells, they're like razors. And so he steps out on his own and his feet start bleeding and he puts them back in the boots. And we're going, Angus, give us your hand. Let me get you out. And finally, he conceded and he got out of the boat. He got back into the boat, but he couldn't do it alone. And it was the picture of me again, right there before my eyes, that I had come along his side. So my answer to your question is, stop trying to do it alone. Who is it in your life that you want to sit down with, whether it's a mentor, a coach, a guide, someone that can ask questions, speak truth into your life, and help you do what you know how to do, but bring you back to a place of health again. That's, I find, especially solo pastors that are out there, but probably lead pastors in general. We say the air is thin up there on top and there's not a lot of friendship. So who are you talking to? Who are you allowing into your life to do it? Just stop doing it alone because it's wrought with all kinds of hazard. That's what I find.
That's great advice. I've heard that phrase. You might correct me. I might botch it up here, but fast alone and far together. And I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, organization, whether you're a church leader or business owner, entrepreneur, it's the lonely at the top, but you've gotten there usually by going really fast by yourself. And then at some point you reach that ceiling and it just stops. Mm-hmm. You feel stuck. Yes. And I think it's so hard for us sometimes to realize, hey, you're not alone. And right. that's the whole mission of F3, right? It's trying to end the sad clown and let people know, it's the no man left behind. And I think it's easy as entrepreneurs to tell ourselves that lie of no one else can do this except for me. No one else understands. And the only way I can do it is on my own.
Yeah. And there's also and this is my own issue, is maybe I'm not confident enough in what I'm doing to actually, maybe someone will think what I'm doing is not worth doing. That maybe this imposter syndrome or a lot of issues like that, like wait till I get my footing before I bring somebody on, and then I'll have a little more courage to do that. So there's all kinds of issues that we face. And you're right, F3 is the perfect place. I just talked to a guy yesterday. I said, hey, I saw you over at the event the other day. Yeah, I'm going to get out as soon as I'm in shape, is what he said. I said, we don't want you when you're in shape. Forget that part. Just come, right? But that's what leaders say. They say, well, I'll get somebody to help me when I'm in shape. And you're missing the point, right?
I'll go to church once I'm a better person. Once I start, getting closer to God, then I'll feel comfortable to get went to church. Yeah. It's funny. It's funny how we tell ourselves that lie for every situation, even though we know it's a bold-faced lie. We still somehow allow ourselves to trip over that every time.
Absolutely, that's so true. Yeah.
Rocko, do you have any other stories, anything else that you'd like to share that you didn't get to share about your business, how you help people, any free resources or tools?
Yeah. Well, if you go to my website, I do offer a Working Genius assessment for free if somebody wants to take advantage of that. And we've purchased a bunch of them for you. So if that's something that will be helpful to get a conversation going, I'd love to do that. My story of being stuck is something I've put a framework together too. That's available on there for a download if you want to do something like that. I will say part of my story that I haven't shared is I really tried to do this in the marketplace apart from the church for a while, and I've had some success in doing that. But my heart is trying to put my attention toward church, but still don't want to ignore the the folks that come along. I've got a couple right now that are not church related coaching clients, but I'm wide open to tell people what people need to know. I tell them right in front, what you're going to get from me is me. I'm going to coach from a perspective of faith. I'm not going to ram it down your throat, but they're principles that you read in books that are titled something else, but they're really faith principles. And I think people respect that. In fact, I have a dear friend that is a Muslim in our F3 group, and he and I are buddies, and we do some coaching together. I just share from who I am, and there's a deeper mutual respect because we care for one another, and we're trying to make one another at least 1% or more better than what they're doing. So I would say, if to answer your question most directly, if there's an entrepreneur out there that's not directly church related that would like to have a conversation about some coaching, some leader coaching, I would love to have that conversation and help, just as an F3 friend. And yeah, it's I don't want to keep the doors closed to those things, but my particular business is directed to the church. So that's where I'm at.
Pax, if you've never done the Working Genius, this would be a great opportunity to take it. I'm sure some of you listening, you've done like DISC and Myers-Briggs and Strengths Finders, and maybe more advanced, you've done like Predictive Index or Culture Index, and you've gone through the cycle of all those. I know I have, but I've found the Working Genius to be beautiful because it's simple and it's effective. You can take it, you get it. You don't have to go to a 2-day masterclass to understand it. It just makes a lot of sense. And I think having a conversation with Rocko after that, he could probably bring some really neat enlightenment on, hey, what does it mean to be a galvanizer? Like, what kind of people do I need to have around me? Because I know I found for myself, it was very enlightening of, as a galvanizer myself, it's like, I've got to have these other types of people around me, or I could create a lot of chaos and not have a lot of things that get complete. Really good at starting things, not good at finishing things. So instead of me having that burden and saying, well, I just suck at this, it's lonely at the top, I guess that's what it's like. You get to understand, hey, if I have these people around me, I get to enjoy my life a little more, and I can be happy knowing that I don't have to be a finisher. I was created to be a starter, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But you only get 2 that are your geniuses. The rest he's given to somebody else. One of the questions that I ask when I go through the whole list of them is, which one of these 6 is the best working genius for a leader?
Interesting.
And you get all kinds of things. And the answer is the self-aware leader, because there's no leader that is pigeonholed to have a specific working genius. So it kind of goes back to, what advice would you give to a leader? And that would be to become self-aware of who you are, so that you can surround yourself with people that you aren't. So you can get the process done. So that's the power of the working genius in a leader development component. And here's one other example of a place that I did. I did a workshop for a very large organization in Ohio. It was their home office year-end training thing. And so they rented out the Football Hall of Fame conference room in Canton, Ohio, where this organization was. And I presented this to 80 people, this working genius, to 80 people in the room, which I was a little nervous about, because usually I do smaller groups of 10 or 15 type of thing. I was just wondering how it was going to work. And then they invited me back about 2 months later to do a leader training for those teams, because what they found is and this is that little microcosm look at things. So the whole organization's looking at using working genius, but each team now needed to figure out how they were going to be using working genius. So it was an incredible. Every employee, that particular place now has probably like 120 people. Everybody that comes through their organization takes working genius, and they not to be placed on a team, but to know where they fit on the team, where they're placed, so they know the work that they're doing. So it's pretty powerful in many regards, even in worship renewal. I'm telling you, even in worship renewal. So
yeah, So can you spot the guys? So the guys wearing tight jeans, the hipsters on stage, they're always X type of personality. Probably not. Probably not. It's
I ain't saying nothing.
Yeah. Hey, it's funny. I actually used to be that guy. So I played in touring bands and did some worship.
Dude,
and I was the
nice.
tight jeans. I mean, full sleeve tattoos, right? So I was the tight jeans hipster guy on stage.
Yeah.
So I'm guilty. I'm guilty.
No guilt given. It's just our culture. So that's
Yeah.
why I didn't fit in anymore.
You know, on the last note, we'll wrap up here. One thing I love about those types of tests in the Working Genius is I feel like when you have a team, it gives permission for everyone on the team to have extreme empathy and really understand that, hey, this person is this way, not because they're weird or they hate you or that they just have bitterness against you. Their gifts are just different, and you learn how to respect and treat those gifts. So conversations just can completely change.
Absolutely. Two words we use. There's no guilt. I no longer have to feel guilty for the things I can't do. But that's not how I'm wired. You don't get excuses for not doing them, but I have to feel guilty because we have to be adults and do our work, right? But you have to feel guilty, and there's no judgment. Like you said, that guy that keeps coming in late or never gets his work done, there might be something else, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, it's great observation.
That's good.
So helpful.
Rocko, thank you so much for being on the show, my friends.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invitation. I'm so excited about the work that you've initiated, that you're galvanizing. Beautifully done. Way to throw it in there. This is awesome. So I've listened to the last, I think, 2 that you've done, or is it 3 now? I can't remember. 2 that I've listened to. And thanks for doing that. Thanks for your investment in the men of F3 and supporting the entrepreneurs out there that are just trying to make it work.
Absolutely. I'm just like you guys. We're all in this together. So guys, if you enjoyed this conversation and you know someone in your region maybe that is a pastor, that's in church leadership, even a business owner, make sure you share this with them. The whole reason we're doing this is to help other folks, right? If Rocko can help them by just thinking differently, maybe you share this with them, or if you want to go deeper and reach out to him. Website one more time was r3church.coach.
Yep.
Okay. And also you can find them on the Warrior Biz Network. We'll put this recording up there too. So thank you guys for joining us on another episode. Really hope today's story has inspired you to push your boundaries, strive for excellence in both your business and personal life. Remember, the journey of 43 feet begins with a single step. So take that step today. Continue to build your legacy as a warrior in business and a leader in life. For more inspiring stories and resources, visit warriorbizNetwork.com. Until next time, stay strong, stay focused, keep living out the principles of fitness, fellowship, and faith. This is Jasmine signing off from the Warrior Biz Network podcast. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jasmine.